So in this drill, we are going to focus on developing a Hello World application in Node.js, and we're going to implement it in two ways. Number one, we're going to just use the standard HTTP module provided by Node.js natively. But secondly, we're going to focus more on a real-world application of actually using the Express Web Framework application, which is pretty much a de facto standard, or has been the de facto standard of running a web server on Node.js. So we'll take a look at those two approaches. So first, how do we get the HTTP module to run a web server? Let us define in this project or initialize our Node.js project by using the npm init function. So we're gonna just leave everything default. Just enter through. Is this okay? Yes. So that creates a package.json file here, which gives us our project description, project properties here. And I'm going to create a index.js file, which is the entry point to the web server. And here, what code should I be adding here now? So let's navigate to Node.js, docs, guides, getting started, guys. So as you can see, Node provides pretty much boilerplate code for running an HTTP server. And because we're lazy, I'm just going to copy pasta this into the index.js. So this by default works, and this is going to, run the server. And whenever we make a request to the server locally, it's going to provide us with the response here. One thing I'm going to change here is rather than using the require import here, I'm going to use a newer method of doing it, the ES6 method of module imports, which is defined. The syntax looks something like this. We'll kind of go over, the difference between the two in future videos because that's out of scope here. But essentially, this is the older CommonJS way of requiring modules. This is the newer ES6 method, since I believe Node 12. But the general rule of thumb, I would stick to using the import statement. Because it's newer and most people are doing it this way these days. But yeah, so let's walk through this code here. The host name, we're gonna, 127, which is a local host, port 3000. We're gonna actually create the server here and the listener object. So whenever a request is made, it's gonna, execute this function right here. It's gonna set the status, go to 100, text, plain text, hello world. Once we create that server, the server is going to listen to a specific port defined here. Host name is localhost. And when it runs initially, it's going to actually print this console out. So let's go ahead and try to run that file. The node index.js is the server. Whoa, what's going on here? We got an error. Cannot use import statement outside of module. Yes. So as you can see here, we changed this line item. So the reason why this error is being thrown is because Node.js by default interprets the code as CommonJS. As you can see in the documentation, let's navigate to our documentations here. Docs 14.16. If we look at module packages, Node will treat as CommonJS all other forms of input such as JS, unless you explicitly define that this file should be read as an ES6 module. In order to do that, there's two ways to resolve this issue. In the package.json file, you can define the type and define it as a module. Now, when Node runs and reads this package.json file, it's going to know to interpret all of your JS files as an ES6 module as opposed to a CommonJS module. So once you add that and save the new package.json, this is going to run correctly. So as you can see, server running at, localhost port 3000. Now, the second way to go about resolving that issue is rather than defining it in the package.json, you can actually change this file name. Rather than the extension of .js, you can define it as .mjs. Once you do that, Node is going to know explicitly to interpret this as an ES6 module as opposed to CommonJS. And you run this. Oh, you gotta actually define a path. Like such. Oops. The path is a current directory and index.js. Why is that not working? Oh, it's MJ. Sorry about that. So Node is going to run the file, the server running at localhost 3000. So if we actually navigate to our browser, and then we hit the correct port, so this request is going to be routed to our application. This function is running. We get a 200 and we get, indeed, hello world. So that is the simplest way to get a web server up and running with HTTP. But as you can see here, this is way too simple, right? Like, let's say we have in our real application, we're going to have some sort of route. We're going to have API. We're going to have user endpoint. We're going to have, I don't know, like comments. And then we're going to get a specific comment by the comment ID. As you can see here, this is way too simple of an application. And we're going to use, in the next section, we're going to use Express, the Express Web Framework, provided right here. We're going to use this to make our development a little bit more easier. Stay tuned. Alright, in the second section, we are going to look at installing Node Express and using that to run a web server. So I reverted all the changes. The index.js is blank. I'm just going to leave it as .js. And in the package.json file, I'm going to define all of our JavaScript files as an ES6 module. So in order to get Express up and running, we're going to navigate to the docs again. So in the Express documentation right here, getting started guide and installation. We did all of these steps. We're going to actually download the Express dependency and install it using npm. So once again, copy pasta, npm install express save. So this is going to download Express and save it as a dependency into our package.json. It's going to take a little bit of time. There we go. So as you can see in our package.json, it installed Express, downloaded in the node modules folder, and added a package.lock on it. So what should we add in here in order to get Express up and running? Once again, back to the docs, hello world. Because I'm lazy, we are going to copy pasta. Actually, we can probably change it to node 14 because this is what I'm using. Although it doesn't seem like there's any changes, which is a good thing. I'm going to copy pasta this hello world example into index.js. And like I did in the previous section, I'm not going to use the require syntax. I'm going to use the ES6 import syntax, which is this right here. Cool. Now this is pretty much it. This is our simple web server. If we actually run this using app node.js, example app listening at localhost 3000. So this listen function is running and it's listening onto this port right here. Now let's navigate to Chrome. And then if we navigate to localhost 3000 and there we go, hello world. This function actually runs whenever we make a request. So Express makes it a lot easier to add different routes, which is one of the benefits of Express. Let's say I wanted to add more routes in our web server. So in this, for example, I want to add a hello world 2 route, a get endpoint, hello world 2, response with hello world 2. You know, in your real world application, right, you're going to have different endpoints. You're going to have like users, get the different users, you know, getting users on the system. You'll have different posts, getting all posts, or something along the lines of, you know, if you actually make a comment or something, if you actually make a Facebook post, that would be a different method, right? It would be the post method, and then we can actually post a single post, creating a post. So it's as simple as that. You can just add literally routes like this, and this is the order of precedence is from top to bottom, right? So whichever route it finds is going to serve and execute that function. So let's restart the server and verify that all of our endpoints have been registered with the web server. There we go. So let us go. Hello world is still there. we added this hello world 2, right? So hello world 2. There we go. It responds with hello world 2. All the other endpoints that we registered, getting users on the system, is running. Looks like everything is working properly. And in order to verify the post method, we use Postman. We'll probably go into a little more detail with Postman, but this tool basically makes it very easy for API development. You can add a request here and you can change all the different methods. You can change the parameters that you're passing it through. You can pass it in as, form data. You can pass it in as JSON if you need. So we'll go over that in future videos. But in this specific request, I'm going to make this a post request, and it's going to be localhost 3000 and post. Here we go, creating a post on the system. So once I made that request, it actually served this correct endpoint right here. So that pretty much wraps up the basics of Express, of basics of getting it up and running. That's good. Thank you for tuning in, guys. See you in the next video. I hope that video was helpful, and if you learned something new today, please like and comment on the video with any questions or comments. Please subscribe to our channel for future updates as well. Game on, programmers!